My wife's betrayal shattered our marriage. She, 37F, got a new job about 4.5 months ago and made some new friends, women I, 36M, never really liked. They were extreme feminists, the kind who would berate you whether you opened the door for them or didn't. At first I laughed it off, but over the past 2 months, I noticed unsettling changes in my wife. Don't miss this truly unique opportunity to be at the origins of the great channel by subscribing to it. We had been married for 11 years and had 2 kids, a 10-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. But things kept getting worse. She started accusing me of ridiculous things, claiming I was born evil, just because men had historically oppressed women. Suddenly, the small acts of kindness she once appreciated became reasons to start fights. I tried to stay patient, often ending arguments by saying, "The only thing I'm guilty of is loving you." She would go quiet, but the next day, she'd start the same fights again, just with slightly different arguments. Then, about 5 weeks ago, I felt it in my gut, something was seriously wrong. She came home late without telling me, ignored my calls, and was visibly drunk. The next day, when I asked her about it, she dismissed my concerns, saying I was controlling and reading too much into things. This happened a few more times. I tried checking her phone but found nothing concrete, though it was clear she had deleted messages. However, I did stumble upon a conversation with one of her new friends. They were discussing how she should bring up the idea of an open relationship with me. That's when I knew. I didn't just suspect it anymore. She was cheating. According to the messages, she planned to bring it up on the second Monday of December. Our kids were spending Christmas with their grandparents, and we were supposed to join them that day. That morning, over breakfast, she acted like the idea of an open relationship had just randomly popped into her head. But I was ready. I had already started recording. I had read enough stories online to know that there was no salvaging this. My priority was protecting myself and my kids. I didn't yell or lose control. I just went cold, like an interrogator. At first, she was smug, but that vanished the moment she saw the look on my face. Me. Who is he? Her. What do you mean? She played innocent, pretending not to understand. Me. If you want to have this conversation, don't insult me. At least be honest. If you can't do that, then what's the point? Her. What do you mean? Me. If you lie to me right now, we can't even have the discussion you think you want. That's when she cracked. Her. Okay. I have been seeing someone. But it's not serious. I still love you, I just think we could explore other options. Me. No. You don't get to unilaterally decide that. You already made your choice when you went behind my back. She started crying, saying she never meant to hurt me, that she got caught up in things, that her friends encouraged her. Me. Your friends didn't make you cheat. That was your decision. Own it. She sobbed, saying she didn't want to lose our family and that she regretted everything. Me. It's too late for that. I don't trust you anymore. And without trust, there's nothing left. Then I stood up and walked away. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer and start the divorce process. She kept trying to apologize, but I knew there was no coming back from this. My only priority now is my kids, making sure they get through this mess as unscathed as possible. Everything from him by making false accusations. They encouraged her to do the same to me if things didn't go her way. At that point, I knew I had made the right decision. The final confrontation. As we stood in the middle of that disastrous conversation, I could tell she was still hiding something. Me. Who is the guy? Her. I'm not. Me. Oh my God, it's more than one, isn't it? Her. Me. Don't. Just don't lie. You've already shattered my trust. Either you're completely honest, and we talk this through, or we're done. Right now. No arguments. No discussion. Just divorce. Do you understand? Her. But. Me. Say it. Do you understand? Do you get that if you lie to me again, we are over? Say it. Her. I understand. That's when she finally confessed. She had 2 one-night stands while out with her friends. I asked for details, their names, whether they were married, whether she used protection. Turns out, both were married men with children. Then came the worst part. She admitted she was planning to sleep with a coworker and intended to pursue a relationship with him because it was good for her. She told me I had no right to control her, no right to be upset. Me. What the F? I asked for his name, his wife's name. According to my wife, he was also married but in an open relationship, just like the kind she now wanted us to have. And as if that wasn't insane enough, she told me she had a friend who was really keen on me and that she'd set me up with her so that everything would be fair. What? In the actual F. I knew the so-called friend. I wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. Me. I'm not interested. At that point I asked for her phone. She handed it over and showed me the unlock pattern, trying to act casual. The moment she went to the bathroom, I locked myself in my office and ran recovery software to retrieve deleted messages. As she pounded on the door, screaming for me to let her in, I uncovered everything, dozens of messages confirming my worst fears. Affairs, plans, the disgusting encouragement from her friends. I also installed monitoring software just in case. When I finally came out, I handed her the phone and told her to leave. She flipped out. She screamed that I was being controlling, that I was just another man trying to hold a woman back, that I never really loved her, that she had every right to do this, that I should just accept it. I barely responded. I just started packing her things while she circled me, yelling and ranting. When I reached the front door, I just stood there, silent, waiting. Eventually, she ran out of steam. With no other choice, she left for her parents' house. As she walked down the stairs, I gave her one last gift. Me. You're single now. You can do whatever you want. I'm not controlling you anymore. My lawyer will be in touch in January. She turned to say something, but I just slammed and locked the door. The aftermath. Later, I watched her messages with her friends. They cheered her on, calling her strong, saying she deserved better than me, claiming I was making empty threats and wouldn't go through with the divorce. But the most chilling part? They told her that if I fought back, she could just accuse me of domestic abuse. One of them even bragged about how she had destroyed her ex-husband this way and taken everything from him. That's when I realized I had dodged a bullet. This marriage was over. My only focus now is protecting myself and my kids. Wife, the woman I loved, would never have done this to me. The person messaging me now is just a stranger wearing her face. Taking action. After seeing those messages from her friends encouraging false abuse claims, I knew I had to protect myself. I ordered security cameras to install around my house. From now on, I would record everything. I had never threatened her in any way, but if she decided to fabricate accusations, I needed evidence to prove the truth. Then, as if nothing had happened, she started texting her affair partner, AP, to set up a hotel meeting. I was stunned. There wasn't even a moment of remorse, just straight back to her cheating. That's when I decided to find AP's wife. It didn't take long. I found her on Facebook, sent a friend request, and within minutes she accepted. I told her everything, about the affairs, the hotel meetup happening right now. She thanked me and hung up. A few hours later, I received a video from her. The hotel confrontation. She had stormed into the hotel and caught them red-handed. From the way she screamed, it was obvious this wasn't the first time her husband had cheated. You fingaholy! You did this to me again? To the kids again? I told you we were over if you ever did this again, you worthless piece of S. She barged into the room, phone in hand, recording everything. My wife sat on the edge of the bed, half-dressed, looking stunned. I threw up when I saw that video. The AP's wife didn't hold back. She slapped my wife across the face and cursed her out before storming off. I texted my wife right after. I saw the video. Never come near me again. Her response? Nothing that resembled guilt. Instead, she acted like this was some kind of competition she was winning. Like none of this mattered. Like she was in control. She was completely delusional. Cutting ties. I logged into her family's WhatsApp group and announced our divorce due to her infidelity. I thanked them for welcoming me into their family and then left the group. Since then, I'd been getting calls and messages from her side of the family, but I haven't read or responded. I don't have the energy. I called my parents and told them everything. My father immediately messaged my wife, telling her she was no longer welcome at our family Christmas. I packed my things and went to stay with them. My boss, thankfully, gave me time off until mid-January to sort my life out. Meanwhile, I kept monitoring her messages with her new friends. And that's when it hit me, she still didn't understand. She had lost her family. Her marriage was over. And those so-called friends in her AP? They didn't care about her. They had nothing to lose. The last messages. She bombarded me with texts, then showed up at my parents' house, demanding to be allowed to celebrate Christmas with us. My father told her if she didn't leave, he would call the police. So now, here I am, Googling divorce lawyers, crying my soul out. I think I've been in shock all this time, but now the pain is finally hitting me. I only responded to her twice. Me. It doesn't matter what you say. I don't know who you are. My wife, the woman I loved, would never destroy my heart and soul while smiling. We are getting a divorce. I don't care what you say or what you want. You have no right to demand anything from me ever again. We are over. Her response was another flood of excuses and gaslighting. So I texted one final time. Me. Like I said, you are not my wife. I don't know you. And then I blocked her. She barely made enough from her part-time job to support herself, let alone anyone else. Meanwhile, I had always supported her hobbies, dreams, and ambitions, even when she kept flunking class after class, only to drop out halfway through. No matter what, I made sure she felt loved and appreciated every single day. I took her out, showed her affection, and stood by her whenever she needed me. If this was what oppression looked like, I'd gladly take some more of it. But I digress. At some point while reading, exhaustion took over, and I passed out. When I woke up, my 3 best friends were in the kitchen, helping my dad prepare dinner. I had known these guys since childhood. Let's call them Mike, Bob, and Frank. My dad had filled them in on everything, and as soon as I saw them, the weight of it all crushed me again. I completely broke down, and was pretty much out of it until Friday evening. Mike, a former soldier, had lost his left arm below the elbow. We had all been there for him during his recovery when his wife abandoned him, not that they had any kids to complicate things. He eventually pulled through, adopted 2 children, and found a great girlfriend, so he was doing well. That night, he arranged a Zoom call with the counselor who had helped him during his recovery. Even though the counselor specialized in amputees, he helped me understand my emotions. He explained that many wives walk away when their husbands get injured, and his stories put things into perspective. More importantly, he told me to think of my sense of self, my identity as a husband, as something deeply tied to my marriage. And now that my marriage was gone, that part of me had essentially died. Just like an amputee feels phantom pain in a missing limb, I would feel phantom pain from the loss of that part of myself. We talked for hours, and since then, I've been slowly getting better. Bob worked as an executive for Summit Security, though he never talked much about his job, and I had no clue what he actually did. What I did know was that he was well off. He called a law firm that his company kept on retainer, and by Sunday morning, I was sitting down with a lawyer I could never have afforded in my wildest dreams. Bob, a lifelong nerd who had been bullied a lot growing up, insisted on covering the legal fees. He told me this was his way of finally repaying me for all the times I had stepped in and taken a beating on his behalf. Frank was a teacher at a private school, happily married, and believe it or not, a father of 7. My kids adored him and his family, and while I struggled to get back on my feet, he made sure they were safe and taken care of. Yesterday was chaos. My morning started with an STD screening, and that's when I got the lovely news: she had given me chlamydia. I'd have to do another screening in 6 months just to be safe. The self-pity I had been drowning in evaporated in an instant, replaced by pure, seething rage. That was the final straw. The gloves were off. I decided I would give her nothing if I could get away with it. My lawyer had tracked down the ex-husband of my wife's feminist friend, the one who had boasted about how she'd completely screwed him over. It turned out to be easy, just a matter of finding the court documents. I wouldn't have thought of that. I spoke to him on WhatsApp, and he was incredibly grateful to talk, but he also shared everything that this woman had done to him. His story was horrifying. I now knew exactly what I was up against with my soon-to-be ex-wife. The conversation left me disgusted, but more determined. I was preparing for a battle. Hearing how he had been homeless and hadn't seen his kids in 4 years because of her lies was heartbreaking. I fully recognized the disadvantages men face in the court system, but I was going to make sure I had all the evidence I could gather. My lawyer even suggested a preemptive move, a restraining order due to her hostile, aggressive comments toward men, particularly for the sake of our son, who should not be raised in an environment with an openly anti-male figure. So, I made the decision to fight for full custody. I told my lawyer to go ahead, and she was set to be served the restraining order that very day. I then had a Zoom call with my soon-to-be ex. She hadn't reached out to me at all since she showed up at my dad's house to argue with him. She hadn't contacted the kids either, which made it clear she didn't care about any of us. The call was incredibly strange. She was completely dolled up, with a deep neckline that was trying too hard to show off. It was obvious she was putting in the effort to look her best, something I hadn't seen in years. Throughout the conversation, she tried to bait me into an argument to get me angry, but I kept my cool. My lawyer had prepared me with specific questions to ask, apparently, showing an attempt to have an amicable divorce before contesting one would reflect positively. The call was recorded, and I even told her that. As expected, she didn't disappoint. She started with the most ridiculous comment about the two types of penises, one that stays the same size whether erect or not, and another that changes. What kind of conversation opener is that? Then, she rambled about looking forward to the end of restrictions so she could investigate this topic in person. I simply told her I wasn't interested in her hobbies and only wanted to discuss the divorce. When I didn't take the bait, she got hostile. At one point, she said she was going to the bathroom and muted herself. I watched as she consulted with her friends about how to handle me, only to come back and curse me out repeatedly for nothing more than being a man. It was clear she saw this as some kind of game where she was in control and expected me to just go along with whatever she wanted. There was no progress made on the divorce, so I finally decided, fine, a contested divorce it is. And by the way, you gave me chlamydia, and unlike you, I haven't been sleeping with anyone else. After the call, I told her to go to the clinic, and she just frowned at me, like she didn't believe me. I have no clue what's going on in her head anymore, and at this point I don't care. I sent the recording to my lawyer, and she was shocked, to say the least. Everyone now thinks my wife has completely lost it. Maybe she has. Since I have access to her phone and the subscription, I can even use the chat logs in court. It turns out it's perfectly legal for me to monitor my own devices. After our call, there was some frantic discussion among her friends, but I've moved on. I don't care anymore. My lawyer is confident we'll win this case unless there's something I haven't told them, but I'm not hiding anything. So here I am. It still hurts, but I've started seeing it as phantom pain. I've abandoned self-pity and I'm going for the jugular, no mercy. I need to protect myself and my kids. They'll be okay. I'll make sure they get therapy whenever they need it. My soon-to-be ex-wife will soon be a distant memory, and I'll begin building a better life. I found out today that she knew about the chlamydia and had been treated for it, but she never told me. She was joking and laughing about it with her new friends. That's just messed up. Update: she ruined our family and Christmas. Why does she think I should be okay with what she's done? I get a lot of feedback that I'm strong or that I'm somehow winning or coming out on top, but rereading my posts, I see that my anger is what really shows. Maybe I look fine and sure of myself, but the truth is, I'm not. I wish none of this had happened. I wish my family was still together, and that I had a long, peaceful life ahead of me with my wife as we raised our kids. No one is winning here. My wife has completely lost her way, and everything is falling apart. I have no idea what's wrong with her. She won't see a doctor for possible mental health issues, and she acts like nothing's wrong. She shows no remorse, no regret. She acts like I'm the unreasonable one for not just accepting whatever she wants. She's completely shut off from reality. She hasn't even talked to the kids since D-Day. I'm divorcing her because I have no other choice, and by now, there's no going back. I wish so much this wasn't necessary. I can never trust her again. I cry myself to sleep every night, not just for what I've lost, but for the fact that my kids will grow up in a broken home. It breaks my heart knowing my kids no longer have a functional relationship with their mother. The hardest part is how to answer when my child asks, "Why doesn't mommy want to see me anymore? Doesn't she love me?" How do you even begin to explain that? If anyone knows, please let me know because I sure as hell don't. Every day I wake up and tell myself that my heart has been shattered into so many pieces that it couldn't possibly break anymore, only to be proven wrong over and over again. My wife still doesn't know that I can monitor her communications, or maybe she just doesn't care. She's 100% convinced that I'll never leave her and that my reaction to her behavior is totally unjustified. She keeps talking badly about me, our marriage, and our children to her friends. I can't understand why she hates us so much. We haven't done anything to deserve the things she accuses us of. As I mentioned earlier, my lawyer got a temporary restraining order against her. There was a hearing yesterday morning, but since there were no new direct threats, it wasn't extended. My lawyer suggested using the fact that she knowingly infected me as leverage to get her to agree to an undisputed divorce. I wish we could separate through a reasonable process, but instead, I have to see her as the enemy and always expect the worst. If she wanted to leave me, I could live with that, but why force me into this toxic, adversarial process? Why does she go out of her way to hurt the people who used to love her, as much as possible? What does she hope to gain from all this? It just doesn't make any sense to me. If we go to court, I'll likely have to pay her a lump sum for the equity in our house, but I don't think I'll be liable for alimony. Since she's shown no interest in the kids, I'm hopeful that I'll win custody if it goes to court. My lawyer suggested we try to get her agreement for an amicable divorce, so we'll meet with her and her representative hopefully this week. The ex-husband of the woman who defrauded me spent New Year's Eve with me and the kids. He's been through a lot with the injustice of the system. His ex-wife lied through her teeth, and the court just accepted it as fact, no proof needed. He's barely seen his kids and has been forced to pay unreasonable amounts of alimony and child support, which has nearly broken him. But with the new evidence I've gathered, he's found a renewed sense of hope. We both talked to my lawyer, and she suggests he hold on to the evidence until the meeting with my wife and her counsel. If he acts now, it could reveal our hand, that we have access to all their communications. My lawyer's goal is to get the divorce over with as quickly and smoothly as possible. Right now, all I want is to get away from her. If she decides to fight it, this could drag on for a long time, and it's stressing me out. I just need to be free. I'll post an update if we manage to get a meeting or if it goes straight to a disputed court process. Update: cheating wife ruined the family and Christmas. Why does she expect me to be okay with her behavior? Sadly, the bizarre. The situation continues. The meeting with my lawyer and my soon-to-be ex-wife, STBXW, took place yesterday afternoon. She showed up 30 minutes late, didn't bring a lawyer, and claimed she didn't need one. Instead, she brought one of her new friends along. After hearing my lawyer's instructions, I knew I had to stay calm and composed. I wasn't supposed to react negatively to anything they said. If they addressed me, I was supposed to respond non-confrontationally or positively. If my lawyer put both hands flat on the table, I needed to stay silent. They showed up late, no masks of course. The friend, who I'll refer to as Harpy, tried to insult me and provoke me in every way she could think of. My STBXW did the same. My lawyer tried to steer the conversation toward the subject at hand, our divorce, but they were just joking around, laughing at their own insults. It was cringeworthy to watch. At this point, it's clear my wife still believes this is all some kind of joke, that there's no way I can actually divorce her. In her mind, only she can divorce me, and she believes she'll get everything if she decides to go through with it. I just sat there, thinking, what the hell is going on? I didn't really say anything of substance. I just responded with things like, yes, you're probably right. Or, I really don't know. Eventually, they ran out of steam. My lawyer got the word to move forward and started presenting the proposed settlement for an amicable divorce. The first thing she said was that I was willing to be generous to resolve this quickly and peacefully, and would pay her a lump sum of $60,000 for the equity in the house, investments, etc. Before my lawyer even finished that sentence, my STBXW and her friend were practically jumping out of their seats. The Harpy was nudging her, and my STBXW was eager to sign right away. She started asking when she could expect to receive the money, and said they needed to get to the pub. My lawyer made a quick call, whispered something, and then there was a flurry of activity. An older woman asked for our identification documents, and we were asked to sign 2 copies of the agreement. When we finished, the woman stamped the documents, and I later found out she was a notary. My lawyer, almost standing on her tiptoes at this point, thanked my STBXW and the Harpy and told them we were done. They left, and my wife didn't even take her copy of the agreement with her. She left it on the table. My lawyer looked at me and then glanced at her flat hands. She obviously didn't want me to speak while they were still in the building. Once we saw them crossing the parking lot, my lawyer turned to me and said, "Congratulations." Then she spoke at length about how this was the strangest session she had ever had for a negotiated divorce. She told me she would send my STBXW's signed copy soon. After our hearing in front of the judge, or if my ex-wife hires a lawyer and they request it, I'll send her a copy. Until then, it's sitting in my lawyer's drawer, so for now, it seems like my divorce will be much smoother than I initially expected. My ex could still hire a lawyer and contest everything, but my lawyer has said she'll pull every favor she can to get me a hearing with the judge as soon as possible, probably over video call. I've also hired a private investigator, as per the advice I got on Reddit, and he managed to get photos of my wife kissing 2 different guys at 2 separate bars yesterday. She even went to a hotel with one of them, so I now have a lot of evidence if I need it. I hope it's enough if things go that far. My wife signed the papers giving me full custody, a one-time payment of $60,000, and no spousal support, just that, and I'm free. Now I just need to figure out how to get the money. I have a plan, and Bob offered to cover the entire amount if needed. Still, it feels surreal. I fully expect her to play her cards and accuse me of abuse or something ridiculous with her lawyer, but my lawyer advised me to keep a low profile, pay for everything as usual, and avoid stirring things up. The advice is clear: don't engage with anyone we both know, stay silent, and wait for the hearing. So now, I just need to be patient and hope for the best. Update. Yesterday was the hearing. Technically, I'm already divorced, but the paperwork will take 4 to 6 months to finalize. At this point, It seems like nothing can change the outcome unless both my wife and I agree to stop it. I'm completely exhausted, haven't slept in who knows how long, so if I seem a bit scattered, I'm sorry. I just need to vent, and hopefully, I can sleep after typing this all out. Thanks to my amazing lawyer, I got an early hearing, just 12 days after submitting the paperwork. I'm sure she pulled some strings for that. The weekend up until today has been a whirlwind. On Friday morning, a bunch of police officers showed up at my door with a warrant to search the house. I was completely confused and worried about the kids, so I asked if I could take them outside while they searched. Thankfully, they agreed. They didn't give me much info, but I did get a copy of the warrant. I was so shaken, I couldn't really process everything at first. I guess those who speculated that my ex's behavior might be related to drugs were right, as there seems to be some truth to that. The police said they were going to completely ransack my house. I called my lawyer, who spoke with them, but the warrant was valid, so there was nothing we could do at that point. I didn't think about it at the time, but now I have cameras everywhere, just in case I'm ever wrongfully accused. I have video and audio evidence of everything, which could help me if I ever need to make a claim. To be honest, I'm not sure if I have the energy or desire to go that route. Maybe it's just best to let it go and move on. What I didn't know then was that my ex and her 3 friends, who I'll call Harpies, took my car while they were high and drunk. They crashed it into a house at high speed. All of them got arrested, completely intoxicated, and they all had drugs on them. They were banged up from the crash, and the one in the passenger seat is in critical condition. They don't even know if she'll survive. The leader of the group, Henrietta, had previously bragged about ruining and lying about her ex-husband in court. Let's call him Henry. Henry and I have actually become good friends, and I've stayed in touch with him. Thankfully, nothing was found during the police search. I gave my statement, saying that my ex doesn't live at my house anymore and is staying with her parents. I also made it clear that I didn't give Henrietta permission to drive my car, etc. When I got back home, I just broke down. The house was completely trashed, and that was the final straw for me. The only thing I could think to do was call my dad. He came over and brought the kids back to my mom's house to stay with her. Meanwhile, my dad gathered a group of 26 friends and relatives. While I was sitting on the back porch, crying and eating my mom's comforting food, feeling sorry for myself, they cleaned and fixed my entire house. Every room was tidied up, the dishes and laundry were done, furniture was rearranged, even the ceilings and walls were scrubbed. They fixed all the little things too, like loose door handles. It was the cleanest my house had ever been, and I couldn't believe they'd do all of that for me. I have no idea how I can ever repay them. They helped me go from feeling suicidal to feeling much better over the weekend. The cops later found more drugs at Henrietta's house, and her boyfriend wasn't there. There was no babysitter, just her kids alone. CPS took the kids, and Henry was granted temporary emergency custody after showing the judge the chat logs, as well as the drugs and abandonment situation. He got custody with little resistance. Henry is beyond thrilled. He hasn't seen his kids in the last 5 years and had been saving up to fight Henrietta in court. He still needs to go through the legal process to make it permanent, but it's looking very likely at this point. Everyone believes that Henrietta will face serious legal consequences, especially if her friend doesn't make it. Henry plans to pursue child support and compensation for everything Henrietta has done, though he's not expecting much. To be honest, I think he doesn't want to waste more time in court. He just wants to be with his kids and give them a good life. It's clear that Henrietta has been extremely neglectful toward them. Bob, who has been amazing through all of this, helped Henry get set up in a rental apartment through a friend. It's kind of strange, but I've realized that I don't know much about Bob's personal or professional life. I intend to change that. Anyway, I'm getting off track again. Henrietta was the one driving when she crashed the car off the road and into a house. The crash left everyone pretty badly injured, and because of the alcohol and drugs involved, search warrants were issued for their residences. My ex is still registered as living at my house, so I decided on Sunday that I would sell this place and leave as soon as possible. I'm afraid the situation could repeat itself. Later that day, I got a call from her parents. Their house had been searched too. They had visited their daughter in jail on Saturday, and, after that, they no longer believed anything she told them. To make a long story short, they came over on Sunday to talk. It turns out she'd been lying to them about everything. She told them she was staying with me and that we were trying to work things out, but they had no idea what was really going on, or what she'd done to me and the kids. They knew she had cheated, but they thought it was a one-time drunken mistake, which was the story she fed them. On Monday, my ex called me asking to post her $15,000 bail. Her parents had already refused. After consulting with my lawyer, We agreed that the bail amount would be deducted from the settlement, to be released when she showed up in court. Her mother was made the custodial person for the remaining amount. My lawyer wanted to ensure my ex had no excuse for not attending the hearing, which is why we made that arrangement. My ex didn't really have any choice and signed the papers. She was released on Monday afternoon. According to her parents, she refused to follow the rules they set for her to stay at their house, rules like stopping the drugs, committing to rehab, and cutting off bad influences. Apparently, she left their house on Tuesday to stay with some of her new friends. She didn't show up for the hearing. After presenting everything to the judge, including the events from the weekend, I was granted full custody. The settlement was quick, taking only 30 minutes to finalize. It'll take 4 to 6 months for the paperwork to go through, but in reality it's done. There's nothing that can change this outcome now. And that brings us to today. I couldn't sleep last night. Everyone's been congratulating me, treating me like I've achieved some huge victory, but it doesn't feel like a win at all. It feels like pain. I still love my wife, and even though I know it's over and there's no turning back, it still hurts. She was my best friend, my soulmate, until recently. Even though my love for her is shattered, it's still there, and it feels like a deep wound. There are no real winners in this. I lose my wife, my kids lose, and I can't really find the words to express it. It feels like being told to celebrate the fact that I lost both of my legs, but because I took action, one of my legs was cut below the knee, and the other above. When people congratulate me, it feels almost like that. It's not a victory. It's just a loss. People keep congratulating me for saving half a kneecap, while losing both legs, and it feels like they don't really understand the depth of the pain. I can't sleep, and when I do manage to, I'm haunted by nightmares that wake me up drenched in sweat. I'm complaining a bit here, sorry for that. Anyway, today I got a call from the hospital. My ex is hospitalized, and I'm still listed as her emergency contact, and she's still on my health insurance. Apparently, there was an altercation. She's lost some teeth, her jaw is broken, and she'll need to stay for observation for a few days. I went to the hospital with her parents, and when I arrived, it turned out that some of her new friends had beaten her up badly. Word had gotten out that Henry had chat logs from my ex's phone, where Henrietta bragged about what she did to him. They assumed my ex gave the logs to Henry, and as a result, they beat her up and kicked her out. Surprisingly, she still doesn't understand that I have access to monitor her phone. I'll keep paying for her insurance, phone, and everything until I get the papers in my hand. Until I have them in front of me, I can't believe it's really over. She has nothing left now. She asked if she could move back home, but I told her, no way in hell. Her mother isn't giving her a single penny unless she gets clean and stays clean for at least a year. They've offered her to live with them under strict terms, but if she doesn't accept, I don't see how she'll manage. It's the first time I've seen any regret from her since all of this started, but I think it's just because she can't keep up with her wild behavior anymore. She did say, I'm sorry I ruined everything. But it didn't feel sincere. She barely looked me in the eyes while I was there, and it hurt to see her like that. I felt like I wanted to protect her, but she's an adult, and her behavior is reckless. I need to protect my kids. Apart from that, she didn't ask about the hearing or her critically injured friend. She just sat there, looking irritated. I still don't get it. She's lost everything, destroyed her family, caused pain for so many people, and for what? A high and some meaningless sex? I'm going completely no contact with her until she's been clean for a long time. I just can't handle all this chaos anymore. Update 5. A lot of people have PM'd me asking for an update. I was going to post one yesterday, but I just didn't have the energy. I'm feeling pretty down and exhausted. I can hardly sleep, and when I do, nightmares plague me. On the bright side, the kids are doing better. My dad has been incredible. I don't know what I'd do without him. We went to his cabin to ski this weekend, just him, the kids, and me. It was a great time. I've had almost no contact with my ex. I did speak with one of her, Harpy, friends, the one who was in critical condition. She woke up, but she's in terrible shape. I spoke to her nurse, and she was upset that no one had bothered to check on her. While she was in the hospital, her family was contacted, but they refused to see her. I'm worried that the people who beat up my ex will come after me or the kids, so I asked the nurse if I could speak with her. Surprisingly, she agreed. I know I shouldn't have, but I felt I needed to hear from her directly about what happened once my wife got involved with these people. She started off asking if I wanted a favor for $20, which was awkward, to say the least. I offered her $50 in exchange for information. It turns out that all of the Harpy friends are hardcore drug addicts. Henrietta pulled my wife into their group, against the wishes of the other two, and convinced her to try drugs and party with them. They would sell sexual favors to get money for drugs. Henrietta was the ringleader, and despite preaching about body autonomy and feminism, she admitted that it was all a facade. The truth was that they were prostituting themselves to fund their drug habits. My wife quickly fell into the same pattern. She became addicted just like the others, and eventually, she was selling sex to support her drug use. Hearing this, knowing that the person I once loved had fallen so low, was heartbreaking. It was painful to accept that my wife, the person I cared for most, had turned herself into someone unrecognizable just to feed her addiction. It explained why all she seemed to want was money. According to what she told me, meth was the main drug involved. No one had visited her because she had stolen, lied, and hurt everyone in her life, and no one wanted to be around her. She even said, with no emotion, how sad she was that she was still alive. She has no hope left for the future, and without makeup, she looked like a shell of a person. Listening to her talk was devastating. I cried a lot, not because I excused her actions, but because of the person she had become. She made the choice to get involved with all of this, and now she has to face the consequences. She also told me about the people who beat her up. I'll get to that in a moment. Henrietta has been charged with multiple offenses, including death threats, resisting arrest, drug possession, prostitution, drug trafficking, child abuse and neglect, DUI, property damage, and auto theft. She's been denied bail, likely due to being considered a flight risk. I hope she stays locked up for a while. Before I continue, I want to thank those who reached out with advice and shared their experiences with dealing with addicts. Many warned me that my ex might try to harm herself now that everything was closing in on her, and unfortunately, they were right. She did attempt to end her life. I had spoken to her father about the possibility beforehand, so we decided to keep a closer watch on her. Thankfully, she didn't know that I was monitoring her phone in real time. While we were at the cabin on Saturday, I got a message from her that read like a suicide note. She confessed to everything: her addiction, the prostitution, how she'd let everyone down, and that she felt like ending it all was her only option. I immediately called her father, and because I had her location, he rushed to find her. He discovered her unconscious on a park bench. She was immediately rushed to the hospital and treated for hypothermia. I dread to think what could have happened if her father hadn't arrived when he did. They've put her on methadone for now. Her father has been appointed her legal guardian, which means she can't refuse treatment anymore. He had her committed to a rehab facility where she will undergo sedated detox, likely sometime this week. The court granted him guardianship not because of her debts, but because she had abandoned her children. Apparently, abandoning your kids while attempting to take your own life is considered enough to prove you're not in a rational state of mind. Thankfully, I haven't cancelled her life insurance or health coverage yet, so she'll still get the necessary treatment. I've even offered to help with some of the financial aspects, as long as she doesn't know that I'm involved. I've been worried about the people who hurt my wife coming after me and the kids. Henry, who had presented the chat logs in court, made it clear that he would handle things since he's the one who benefited from the exposure. If I haven't mentioned it before, Henry is a giant of a man, an intimidating figure who looks like he could snap someone in half. He grew up on a farm, lifting heavy loads since childhood, so he's built like a tank. He has a crew cut and some facial scars that only add to his tough appearance. Despite his size, Henry is incredibly patient, gentle, and kind. I know he would only resort to violence as a last option. Anyway, Henry went to the apartment of the two guys who beat up my wife. The place was a dump, and Henry didn't waste time with pleasantries. He grabbed them by the neck, made it clear that they had a choice: either go with him to the police and confess to everything, or face the consequences right then and there. He let them know that if they chose to fight him, they should expect permanent injuries. According to him, they couldn't get to the police fast enough. I no longer have to worry about them. I've found a new apartment, and will be moving soon. Once again, Bob has helped me tremendously. Honestly, I'm still struggling with depression. It's been weighing heavily on my heart. What keeps me going are the friends and family who support me. I know I have to stay strong for the kids. Despite everything, I still feel sorry for my ex. I don't regret marrying her, and I still love her, but it's clear we can never be together again. She's not the person she once was, and there's too much pain between us now. Before everything fell apart, we had a very good life together. I wouldn't have my children if it weren't for her, and I wouldn't give them up for anything. I know this pain will linger for a long time, but I'm hopeful I'll have the strength to get through it. Strangely enough, news of my wife's downfall has had a strange effect on me, and I've had to come to terms with a lot. Addiction has made it easier for my kids to process everything. It's much simpler to talk about how their mom is sick and that it will take time for her to heal, but that she still loves them. Right now, though, I'm feeling sad and exhausted. Henry is here with his kids, and we're going to watch Madagascar 3. I'm trying to focus on making new, positive memories. Henry is doing the same, and it's great to see how much better our kids seem now. I think we'll be alright. Thank you all for the support and advice. This will likely be my last post here. Final update. My ex passed away while in rehab. It's strange and tragic, but we don't know exactly how she got the drugs. It seems she may have taken them inside somehow, though no one is sure how. One doctor speculates that she might have swallowed a bag of drugs, and it burst. I won't be posting anymore or responding to comments. Thank you to everyone who offered helpful advice and support.